Hello everybody, I'm Megan, you're watching Miss Megan Knits, and today we are going to talk about WIPs. That's right, works in progress. How many is too many? Do you have too many? What do you do if you have too many? I'm here to help. How many is too many? Well, it really varies depending on the person. Does having many projects going stress you out? Are you not finishing things because you keep starting things, and does that bother you? If it doesn't bother you, it doesn't bother you. Are you running out of knitting needles to start projects with because they're all stuck in WIPs that you no longer care about? Are your deadlines not being met? Gifts not being given on time? I'm here to tell you, it's not about the number of projects, it's about how well you're managing both completing projects and your stress level. Knitting should be fun, not stressful or overwhelming. If you are stressed or overwhelmed, keep watching for some tips. You're trying to manage your WIPs. The number one most important thing to do is to make a list. Make a big list of all your current WIPs just so you see them and you can understand how much you have. Because if you're like me, you have WIPs scattered all through the house, you have a WIP in your purse, you have a WIP by your chair, you have a WIP by your bed. It's really nice to be able to look at your list of WIPs and see everything you're working on all at once so you can manage it better. Now, you can use just a piece of notebook paper. You can see I don't have very many WIPs going right now. Or you can use Ravelry. Ravelry is a wonderful place to keep track of your WIPs as well as any information about them. All you gotta do is go to projects and add new project, and I add a new project as soon as I cast it on. Some people wait till they're finished. I add it as soon as I cast it on and put in as much information as I can. And then I periodically go back and update it with, oh, I added this new yarn, and oh, I have some more notes, and oh, I figured out, the time it took me to do this section, I'm gonna put that in there, and just like anything that you want to keep track of is great to have that you can add pictures, all kinds of stuff. But it's really great because you can see them all right there. And they have a little big WIP sticker, not sticker, but icon right on them. So you can see, this is what I'm working on, and you can click on anything to get details on it. You've made a list. It's huge, or too big for you, too big for your comfort level. First step is to narrow it down. Really what you gotta do is, what can I get rid of? Think about what you've lost interest in, think about what's not going as planned, think about just stuff you're not having fun with anymore. Does it spark joy? Think of the Marie Kondo idea. When you think about this project, when you hold this project, when you work on this project, are you feeling joyful? And that might be a reason to let something go. Okay, you've decided these things need to go. You have two options. You have basically the frog pond, where you frog something right away, or you hibernate it, which means you put it away for a little while and you come back to it in a certain amount of time. There's no shame in using either of these methods. It doesn't mean you failed as a knitter. It doesn't mean anything like that. If you know that there's something that just isn't working out for you, you don't like it, you don't want it, you don't need to make it, frog baby frog. Really, it's not a big deal. Use that yarn for something that you're gonna like better. Or throw away the yarn if it's frustrating you. Now, if you're unsure, take the whole project, everything intact, and I mean everything intact. Keep the needles in it, keep the pattern with it, mark up the pattern so you know where you were, because if you're gonna leave it for a while, you're gonna wanna come back and be able to start it again if you decide to do that. So make notes about where you left off and what you were doing. Let it sit. Do you miss it? Do you have urges to pick it back up? Does your subconscious keep thinking about it? Do you dream about it? Does it run through your mind occasionally? If these don't happen, frog it after a period of time. If they do, pick it back up. I have a couple of examples. This was a sweater that was way too complicated for me. See, I have a lifeline in, I don't even have the needles in it. It's way beyond my skill level. It has a really complicated chart, and I was following it, and it was taking me 20 minutes to do a single row, no joke. I was having zero fun. The sweater's adorable. It was a pain for me. It was beyond what I was capable of doing at the time. Now, this is going to be frogged. And I put it away, and I had no desire to pick it up again. It was too challenging, and then I started using the yarn for a different cabled sweater that I'm working on right now, and I really like that sweater so much better. So I'm gonna frog this and use the yarn for that sweater. However, sometimes things get rescued from the frog pond. This right here is the baby blanket I made. It's a really big baby blanket, it's really wide because I didn't measure my gauge, and I was frustrated with it because it was really wide. And I had it in my stash, put away, needles in it, markers in it, everything in it. and I realized that I just couldn't frog it. I sat there several times with my ball winder out and ready to go, and I'm like, I just can't do this. I cannot frog it. It's too pretty. I like it too much, but I don't like it, but I don't want to work on it. So I have this big angel devil thing going on. So I left it for a while, and then a couple of months later, I had the desire to pick it up again, and I picked it up again. And I loved it. I loved working on it. It was great, and it came out beautifully. So, sometimes you do pick things back up if you've hibernated them. And there's no shame in doing that either, That blanket is really simple knit, and at the time I was looking for something challenging, but then later I wanted something more relaxing, so I picked it up again, and there you go. Okay, you've narrowed down, you've frogged, you've hibernated. What now? You have to finish WIPs that you've started. Here's how we're gonna do it. We're gonna prioritize it first. And this order of priority order is gonna be completely unique to you, but here's some stuff you should consider. Deadlines, is Christmas coming, the holiday coming, knit along happening, anything that has a deadline, maybe you want to prioritize that, maybe you don't. Stuff that can be finished quickly. If you can just bang something out, anything you can whip out really quickly should be a priority, because then you can get it off your list, it'll be finished, you'll feel so proud of yourself, and stuff you're really excited about should be on your priority list. Knitting should be fun. I'm gonna say this over and over again in the video. Knitting should be fun. Prioritize the things that make you happiest. Set attainable goals. Decided what to work on. Now it's time to bust out your planner or your to-do list. Now, some people are planner people, calendar people. Some people are to-do list people. It's worth finding out which one you are, because then you can keep track of your life so much easier. I'm kind of a hybrid, where I have a planner on one side and a to-do list on the other, which I really like, because I mostly like to-do lists for tasks, but planners for appointments. That being said, bust it out. Find your system for getting things done and apply it to your knitting. Are you working with a deadline? Start from there and work backwards. Even if you say fractions. I want to be a quarter of the way done by this date. I want to be halfway done by this date. I want to be 3/4 of the way done by this date. Now, your goals, you want them to be small and attainable, so really break it up. You want them to be daily or weekly goals, depending on how often you knit or how often you'd like to knit. Some examples of some goals I've had over the past. Attach 3 granny squares to my blanket. Knit 2 inches on my worsted weight sweater. Finish the thumb on the mitten. Or even just wind the yarn for the project. You gotta do that. That's gotta be your first step if your yarn doesn't come pre-wound. So make that a goal. Keep the goals small, but don't beat yourself up for not finishing one. The idea is you want positive, positive, positive. Every time you hit a goal, your brain gets a hit of happy chemicals, which motivate you to keep finishing the project. That's why we keep the goals small. That way, every time we meet a really small goal, we get lots of happy chemicals, and we can make those goals every day, every other day, and get just all kinds of happiness going. Reward yourself for finishing your goals. A reward can be anything. It can be an episode of your favorite TV show. It can be an episode of your favorite podcast. It can be knitting on a different project that isn't a priority, but it's more fun for you. It can be reading a book. It can be anything. Nice hot cup of tea, some chocolate. Reward yourself for finishing your goals, and keep the rewards consistent with the goals. If you hit the really big goal of finishing the whole project, maybe you have a bigger reward than when you just finished the toe of your toe-up sock. I'm gonna say it again. Knitting should be fun. Don't let your schedule ruin the fun of your knitting. Everyone has a different brain. Everyone has a different preference for how they like to schedule stuff. Some people like to schedule everything. Some people like to not schedule anything. Some people are kind of in the middle. Experiment. Figure out what your brain likes, whether it likes more or fewer goals, stricter or less strict goals. Figure out what works for you and do that. After you set your goals, you really just gotta start knitting to finish your projects that are on your list. Fastest way to do this is to plug away. Remember the priority list? Pick something high up on that list. Get all situated. Get yourself a comfy chair. Get yourself a nice beverage. Get yourself some entertainment. I like to listen to podcasts while I knit, or music. You can watch TV. Get completely situated. Remove distractions. Get yourself some you time and knit. Pick an amount of time to devote to a knitting project. Maybe it's an hour, maybe it's 30 minutes, maybe it's 3 hours. Depends on how much time you have, what your schedule looks like. But set aside some time, block it out on your calendar, and just plug away at that project. I know it can be tough, especially if it's a project you're not that interested in, but once it's done, you don't have to look at it anymore. I just did that this morning with a pair of socks. I had a heel left to go, and I just said, you know what, I'm gonna knit this heel because I am tired of these socks and I don't want to look at them anymore. I don't want to work on them anymore. I don't want them floating around as a whip anymore. They're stressing me out. I'm just gonna set aside time, do the whole thing, just plug it out. And it took me like an hour and a half of sitting still and doing that, but I did it and I feel so much better. Another tip of mine is to use a progress keeper during these kinds of times. You can buy cute progress keepers off Etsy or whatever, but a stitch marker, just a plain old locking stitch marker, works just as well. Clip it in your work up by your needle, and then as you go, you can see how much progress you've made, and I swear that makes it so much easier, especially on a large project like a sweater, where it's hard to see how many inches you've put on in that amount of time. And also, don't forget to reward yourself at the end of your session. These knitting sessions can be tedious. They can be really fun, actually, if you're working on a project you really like. But they can be tedious, so either way, take care of yourself, rejuvenate, relax, rest. I know after a marathon knitting session, I ice my wrists because I have carpal tunnel, so make sure you're taking care of yourself. And that's another thing to point out too. If you're having a marathon knitting session, that's great, but listen to your body. There's all kinds of things that can go wrong with the body while it knits, and it's important to be paying attention to that. If you're having soreness, if you're having stiffness, maybe stretch, maybe ice, maybe stop and put it down early, you know what I mean? It's not worth risking your health over, even if it is to make that Christmas deadline. We don't all have time to do that though, to sit for hours and just plug away on a project. So what's the solution? Really, it's to find spare bits of time and do your project little bits at a time. If you have a small project, like a hat or a sock, and by small I mean small in size, not small in amount of time it takes, carry it along with you, always. Do you carry a purse? Do you carry a backpack? Do you carry a work bag, a laptop bag? Shove a project in there. And pull it out anytime you're sitting still, waiting for something. And you would be so surprised at how much time of our lives we spend sitting still, looking around, going, what am I supposed to be doing right now? For example, I like to knit during a commute when I'm not driving. If you take public transportation or if you're just the passenger in a car. I knit in doctor's office waiting rooms. I knit waiting for food while out for dinner. I put it away when the food comes, but when we're sitting around ordering appetizers, whatever, I knit. Waiting in the line to pick up my brother from school. Waiting. Any really waiting is a good time to be knitting or crocheting. I realize I've been saying knitting this whole time. This totally works for crochet too. Knitting is portable. That's why we always get such a cute project bag. Because knitting is portable, let's take our stuff around, show it off, take it to the park, take it to the beach, take it to wherever, you know what I mean? Show off all that fun stuff. And I promise you, when you knit in public, it's a great conversation starter. People will come up to you and ask you what you're making. You get the opportunity to talk to people about what you like to do, and it starts conversations, and it's great. You make new friends. You've heard my tips about taking the list of whips you have and either getting rid of whips or finishing whips. Those are great, but everything still might seem too big. Do you have too many large projects and not enough small projects that you can get done quickly? Are you just not motivated? As a last resort, you may need to cast on. What? You say? Cast on? I already have too many whips. How am I going to add another whip? How's that going to make me have fewer whips? How is that going to happen, right? The way it works is you cast on something, you work on it, it gets you all jazzed about knitting again, and then you start knitting on your whips. You have to be careful with what you cast on though, because not all cast-ons are alike, not all cast-ons will have that effect on you. So, what makes good cast-on? 1, you're super excited about it. Maybe it's a fun pattern, maybe it's a yarn you've been dying to use, maybe it's something you've been looking at but putting off because you have too many whips. Okay, if you're really excited about it, that's going to be a good idea to cast it on, get excited for your knitting. Another good trait, lots of instant gratification. This could mean that it's a super bulky hat that works up in a day and you feel satisfied with yourself. Or it could be something that has multiple smaller steps that you can easily identify and reward yourself for those steps and get that sense of accomplishment. This will give you the motivation to keep up with knitting because, like I said before, your happy chemicals flood your brain when you hit a goal, and it makes you feel good, and it makes you feel more likely to continue doing whatever it is you're doing that gave you the happy chemicals, in this case, knitting. Another good cast on idea might be something that's relaxing to create. For example, when you're plugging away at your whips, just like we mentioned earlier, you might need something relaxing to be a reward in between working on your big list of projects. You might want something that's going to be really calming or alternately really stimulating, whichever you're kind of craving right now. Yeah, you use it kind of in between knitting your whips. You're working on something more fun for you. Think of it as a sorbet, a palate cleanser, something to kind of clear out your brain, dust off the cobwebs in between knitting different whips. So we've gone over my foolproof method for dealing with whips. However, there's one last step, one last resort, one final thing. If none of this happy-go-lucky, rewarding yourself stuff is really working for you, you may need to be strict on yourself. You may need to say something along the lines of, I can't start X until I finish A, B, and C. Some ways to do this. I can't start a project for myself until I finish 2 projects for someone else. I can't start a project for a stranger until I finish this project for my beloved family member. I can't start a project that's new until I finish 3 things from my list. Or maybe even, I can't start a shawl until I finish this shawl. I can't start a sweater until I finish my work in progress sweater. Whatever it is, still use your rewards. Make yourself a special treat for finishing. Maybe the special treat is your brand new cast on when you've finished the things. I know how it goes. Sometimes your treat can be cracking open a new book. I mean, save something nice for yourself for when you get these things done, because it is hard to plug away at a project you're not in love with anymore. It is hard to refrain from casting on new things, because as knitters, we're constantly surrounded by this inspiration of beautiful things, you know, whether it's a color palette or a pattern that's knit or a sweater you see on somebody. You're surrounded by things that make you want to cast on something new all the time. And it really takes a lot of effort to slow down, back it up, finish what you started. So really, reward yourself. You deserve it. My name is Megan. This has been Miss Megan Knits. Thank you so much for watching. And all that YouTube stuff, you know how it works. Like, comment, subscribe, all that jazz. So thank you so much for watching, and have a wonderful day. Bye.